everyone, and welcome to Time and Money Mastery. We are your co-hosts. I'm Indiana.
And I'm Sam. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any of our episodes. Now, let's get started. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Time and Money Mastery. We've got a bit of a surprise for you. Both Indy and I are actually here on the episode to do a bit of a collab and to chat about overcoming age barriers. So hey Indy, it's been a while since we've done a collab episode. Hey.
Oh my goodness, it's way overdue. And honestly, I'm so glad we're doing this, even though we're literally squeezing it in the tiniest window of time. We literally have half an hour and we're like, yep, let's get it done, because we both have such crazy lives. But this is where it all started. It started with us having these awesome conversations. So I'm glad we're sitting here and doing it.
Yes, getting back to our roots. I was literally just thinking the same thing, looking at our podcast schedule, and I was just like, how have we gone this long without doing another collab episode? Because these are my favorite. And so today's episode is a little bit inspired by recent events. So Indiana is actually in, where are you right now? Tamworth, I think?
Yeah, I'm in Tamworth.
Yes.
I just left the Central Coast, and before that I was in Sydney. So doing a little bit of a trip through New South Wales and visiting my family before I go back to Brisbane next week.
Yeah, so I'm still upset that we haven't been able to find some time, despite the fact that you're always here in Sydney. Our schedules just never, ever, ever line up. I think we're literally thinking about July maybe, which is a few months from now. Let's see if that actually goes ahead because of our busy, busy schedules, but that's okay, because what actually inspired this episode is that Indy has a cousin that has a baby. And she's about our age, just under, one of my closest friends who's a year older than me just had a baby, and there are just so many babies everywhere. And we were literally talking about how it's funny that there are so many people in our lives around our age range that are, getting married, having babies, buying houses. And we're here with a podcast trying to start our business and trying to make some cash. So Indy, tell me your feelings. Literally, this podcast is our baby. We will nurture this baby. But yes, Indy, tell me a little bit about your cousin, how you're feeling about the babies everywhere, because it's not like neither of us don't want families. We both obviously want families eventually. So tell me how you've been feeling about all this.
It's so confusing, because honestly I've been majorly lucky because I love kids. I love babies. I'm one of 6, so I've always been surrounded by children and I absolutely love them. And I am the godmother to my cousin's baby, so I'm very, very involved as much as I can be from a different state, and I absolutely love it. But it is quite confronting sometimes to be like, oh my goodness, you are 21 years old and you have a baby. And I'm 25, and what do I have? I just have this podcast. But I'm sure it's same as you. You're like, oh, there's people around me that are younger, older, and when is it going to be my turn?
Literally. See, that's the thing, because every time this conversation about getting married and having babies comes around, I think it's no secret by now. If any of you listeners are new, then you will be introduced to this soon if you listen to our other podcast episodes, that Glenn and I, so my boyfriend and I, the reason why we're not married is definitely not him. It is definitely 100% me. I'm taking full responsibility, because he will be upset at me if I'm not honest about it. And I've been at this place where I really wanted to grow my business before settling down, before having a baby, because I want to be able to give the right kind of attention to the business and the right kind of attention to starting a family, at least the way that I feel. Obviously, everyone's different. I'm not saying you can't grow a business with a family, but given how I was raised, given everything that happened, being exposed to money issues and having to make certain decisions because of a lack of money, that kind of stuff was what I didn't want to put myself and Glenn through. I didn't want to put my future kids through. And so I'm very much on the page of, let me focus on my business, let me focus on growing myself. So once I bring life into this world, I'm at a place where, where I can do that the way that I want to. So it is tough though, because like you said, there are people younger than me that are getting married and having babies. And what's even more difficult is that I know that, not that if I say the word, it'll happen straight away, but I know that I could do things to make, to start this process along. I could have a conversation that'll make these things happen. And so it's almost like I have those moments of, weakness where I'm like, do I really just want to, you know, have a baby first and then do the business later and like figure all that stuff out. But anyway, this conversation about like babies and like business and all of that stuff really got me thinking about what we're going to talk about in this episode was the age barriers, like the things that we feel like we have to do or should be doing based on the age that we're at. So do you feel like, Indy, that like the whole marriage and babies thing is all in your head, or do you feel like it's like a legitimate thing that is being like forced onto you almost from society?
Yeah, like I think it's probably a little bit of both. It's probably like looking at people around me and seeing where they're at and kind of not so much the comparison game, but just kind of being like, oh, okay, maybe I'm supposed to be going down that path soon. But obviously it's so out of the question for me right now. Like I feel like I'm only just discovering who I am in the past 12 months. So I know it's definitely not any place to be thinking about those things, but I think there definitely is still a huge pressure on women, especially to do things by a certain age, because basically it's like, you know, I'm 25 now. That's kind of considered, okay, now you can start thinking about settling down. And then it's like, you only have this really tiny window, basically 25, I would say to 29 even, where you can really be
Literally.
You need to be thinking about having a kid, because pretty much if you say you're 30 and you're unmarried and you don't have kids, people are like, oh, why? And like it is getting better. It's getting older. I think that used to be the case when you were like 20 or 21 and you didn't have that. And it is getting a bit older, but still 30 is so young. Like you really only become an adult at like 23. And then you've got like no time to do your own thing.
Right. And see, what's crazy is that, like, as much as societal pressure plays an influence, what's crazy, because I don't think you and I have spoken about my endometriosis very much, but I remember, so I was diagnosed when I think officially diagnosed when I was like 17, maybe. I literally can't remember anymore, but I was quite young. And I remember my surgeon saying, do you plan on having babies anytime soon? And I was like, I'm 17, I'm in university. No. Wow. Like it was kind of just like, it was a very just normal question for him. And I was just like, not really. And he said that, I think, I'm obviously not a doctor, so don't take this as like medical advice or like actual fact, but the gist of the conversation was if I decided that I wanted to have babies, I wouldn't have had to have surgery yet, because it would sort of help fix the endo, or could potentially fix the endo. And then at the same time, the longer that I put off having babies, the higher risk that I am that I won't be able to because of the endo, at least at the stage of that mine is and how severe it is. Like my auntie who has endometriosis, you know, she doesn't have kids by choice, but I also know that the endo did play a role in that decision as well, and play a role in the options that were available to her. So I feel like for me as well, there is this big, not societal pressure from my friends, but like my friends who know about the endo and who know about how it could potentially affect my ability to have kids. Like it's a conversation that we have semi-frequently, because they're just like, oh, but what if you can't have kids anymore? As if it's not something that I don't think about practically every day. But at the same time, it's like, well, I don't want to just think, oh, I might not be able to have kids in 5 years, but I also know that I'm not financially ready to look after a kid. I also know I'm not emotionally ready to handle a kid. But I feel like it'd be very selfish of me to bring a kid into the world right now, because it's like, that kid would have to go through the consequences of me not being ready, but me also not wanting to risk not having a kid. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, for sure. But I totally get it. And that's your situation. For me, it's like not even on my radar, like remotely. I'm so happy being the auntie and the godmother and the big cousin. And I'm just really happy in that role. And every time I go home and spend time with everyone, it's just a really good reminder to me that no, I'm not ready, and just keep doing me. But, you know, that's kind of not the only thing that I feel pressure with, like for my age. It's kind of also like, I think definitely in what I do, like with money and community, like the finance community, there's a lot of pressure of like having a certain amount of savings even by a certain age, and by having a certain net worth by a certain age. Like I had somebody comment on one of my videos a while ago, and it was like, this net worth is ridiculous. Like you shouldn't be proud of this. Anyone that's like got half a brain could achieve this. And I was like, what?
Really?
Yeah, I think they said something like, if you had been working at McDonald's for 3 years, you could have achieved this. And I was like, well, screw you. I'm pretty proud.
Yeah, also they don't know you or your situation or what
Yeah.
has had to go into where you are. I had no idea that someone said that to you.
Yeah, because
I'm shocked.
I just took a moment and I was like, what the hell? And then I was like, block.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, if someone wants to take like time out of their precious lives to make a comment like that, then clearly you've triggered something in them, whether it's positive or negative. And, maybe it is something that they needed to see. But that's actually a really, really good point, because that never really occurred to me, because obviously I'm not really in the finance community. I'm like standing at the door watching you in the finance community, and you're just like propping the door open for me so I can take a peek with the podcast. And so like I'm still in that space of people who don't talk about their finances that much, people who aren't very open about their net worth, about the debt that they have. Like I couldn't tell you the hex debt of my closest friends in the world, not because we're afraid to talk about money, but because it's just not something we talk about. But what's funny is that like I know everything about like yours. There are people like strangers on the internet that I know more about their financial situation than like the people that I'm super, super close to. And so like it's interesting that you say the pressure to have a certain net worth, because that didn't even occur to me. But also, yeah, it's just interesting because like I feel like there is the pressure that I feel to have a certain amount of savings by a certain age, so that I can have a house, so I can, buy a car, so I can do all of these things. But it's interesting because I don't think I feel the pressure in the same way as you, because I feel like that's not as public for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess so, but maybe it could be in like another way, like maybe like your income or something. I imagine, take this situation. You're 24,
Mm.
almost 25, and you tell someone that you're working at McDonald's. What do you think people are going to say or think?
Oh, they'll be like, why are you still at McDonald's?
They'll be like,
Yeah.
you're too old for that. Like,
Which is crazy to
you
me,
should
because
be
like
making more money than that.
yeah.
Like why? Why does it matter?
Yeah, it literally does. And that's actually crazy, because I actually know so many like people who do work at Macca's or still work at Macca's who I know are older than me. And like I personally don't feel like that's the case when I look at them. But then if I was in that situation having to, if I was working at Macca's and I would like at 24 or 25, I would be worried that that's what other people would think about me, which is really interesting because I would never think that way about someone else. So that's actually
Yeah.
really crazy. Have
And
you like oh sorry, no, you go ahead.
no, you go.
I was literally just going to say, do you feel like this societal pressure, or like this pressure to do things by a certain age, has ever stopped you from doing something, or like forced you to do something you didn't want to do?
It's a good question. I don't think it's ever stopped me, because I am very headstrong and I am very
Yep.
ambitious. But I think if you don't have a really, really tough mindset and self-belief, then it could definitely bother you. And I think it's probably made me hesitate and made me think about things. But generally, I find when someone's doubting me, I want to do it more. So
I love that for you.
often people tell me like, oh, you were too young to leave home, or you're too young to move states on your own. Oh, what about when I moved to Japan? So many people were like,
Oh my gosh,
you're
yes.
too young to move to another country on your own. You don't know what you're doing. You're naive. And yeah, I did it. And I moved to another country by myself with no one's help. So I use it as kind of
Yeah, you
as
sound like you had the
motivation.
best time as well. Oh my gosh.
I use it as motivation, but I think it definitely makes you question things. And if I was, say, 25 and I was madly in love with somebody, I probably would feel, well, maybe not 25, but maybe if I was, say, 22 or 23 and I was madly in love with someone and I wanted to get married, I think there would be a lot of pushback. I think there would be a lot of my family and friends being like, you're too young, you're too young. And it's like, I get it. I get that there's like, you don't fully know who you are yet and things like that. But it's also like, who wrote the rules? Like,
I was literally going to say, like, I'm at this stage right now where, so Glenn and I will be celebrating our, oh my gosh, 10-year anniversary in November. And my grandmother, every time she speaks to me, she's like, so when are you getting married? But I remember like a few years ago, the conversation was, oh, you're too young to get married. Okay. Like focus on your career, focus on yourself. And like, at what point did that conversation change? And like, who decided, like, did I turn a certain age and everyone just collectively knew to start telling me to get married? Like, I don't understand how the family conversation just automatically changed. So that is interesting. Well, okay.
That's
Well,
funny
this is a
because
quote.
my grandparents actually do the opposite. They like,
Oh,
you're
really?
too
I love
young
that.
to get married. They like, stay single, just live your best life, go and travel.
I love your grandparents. They're the cutest. I can't believe they actually remember me from kindergarten.
Yes, so cute.
I literally almost teared up. Well, here's a question for you. When you were, oh, actually, when we were like 5 in primary school, at what age did you think you'd be settling down, getting married, having kids?
Oh my gosh, back then, I
Yeah.
think I would have thought by now, by 25,
Yeah.
that I would have been well and truly like at least married, if not kids, and kids like shortly after, especially because my family is very young. So I'm 25. My dad's only, I think he's turning 50 this year.
Oh,
So,
geez, he's younger than my mum.
Yeah, my dad's really young. My mom's only a couple years older, like 53. And then my grandparents are only like 73 and 80. So they're actually really young, like considering I'm 25 and my older sister's almost 30. So I think there's also,
Oh my gosh, crazy.
yeah, right. But I think there's also that, like, I think to myself, oh, I'd love to start a family young because I've seen my family. My grandparents can now hang out with their great grandkids because they were so young. Like they're still fit and healthy and spending time with great grandkids. But then I'm like, I'm way too young. And like, because they started so young and they have not regrets, but they tell me to wait, like that they wish they had waited. So it's like so conflicting. It's like, oh, maybe I should start young because then I can maybe meet my great grandkids. But then it's like, oh, I'm too young and I should just enjoy this time. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It's actually crazy because I was just gonna say, me and like one other cousin from my mum's side were able to meet our great grandmother, and those memories have just been. Oh, actually, and my sister did too. Wow. Okay. But anyway, like there weren't very many of us, but we were able to meet my great grandmother, and for me, I always wanted that. Like I loved that she was like the matriarch of our family, and that there was just the level of love and respect and just the family feels. I really wanted that for myself. And so what's interesting is I remember when I was in primary school, I used to think that I'd be married by 21, first kid by 22, second kid by 23. Like I literally, like I'm not even just like making this up. Like I remember, I remember having this conversation with my mother, and she would like jokingly ask me, because like, you know, I would always look after my younger siblings. And so like I would look after my younger sister at that point. She was born in 2002. So I was in year 2. And this was around the time that I was having conversations with my mom, because I was like, oh, she's like my baby. And my mom's like, oh, well, when do you want to have your first baby? I remember telling her, oh, like I'll have a baby a year after I get married. And I was like, when are you getting married? And like, oh, 21, because I'll be so old by then. Like, what a joke. Oh my gosh, that was years ago now. And I can't even imagine, like, if I had like got married and had kids at 21, all of the stuff that I wouldn't have been able to do, like all the stuff that I probably wouldn't have had time to do yet. Like I would probably, like knowing myself, I would be working towards making it happen, but definitely not to the same degree. I wouldn't have been able to make it happen in the same way.
Yeah. What about what you asked me before? I'm curious. Have you ever let like being too young like stop you from doing something?
Oh my gosh.
Like voluntarily?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, voluntarily. Like it's an ongoing joke between me and Indiana that I can't do so many of her market research things that she sends me, because you have to be 25 and I'm 24, and like I'm 25 in July and I'm like a few months away. It's literally costing me hundreds of dollars to not be 25 yet. So I'm ready to turn 25. Oh my God, I'm so annoyed. Like it's a few months, but anyway, voluntarily.
Like 90% of those market research things, you have to be 25 and above. So you're just
literally
a few months away.
I know, because every time you send it to me, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, $100. Oh wait, 25. Never mind. Don't even bother doing the survey. But yeah, voluntarily, I think like you, I haven't actually had something that I haven't done because I felt like I was too young. But the level of doubt and uncertainty and questioning that I would go through before actually making a decision was definitely there. So things like quitting my full-time job, like so many people told me, oh, like you're young, you have so much time to build a business, like save some money first. Like I remember talking to my dad saying, don't you want to work for at least 5 or 10 years so you can buy a house and then start a business? And I'm like, I don't want to have a mortgage and a business that I can't afford. Like that sounds even more stressful. And so I guess, like, I mean, they do come from a different time, and obviously like now he's like, oh, you should have started a business in high school, it would be like so much more successful by now. I'm like, rude. But like it's just interesting because yeah, I mean, like he's not wrong. But it's just interesting because there are so many people that I know in the business community that I've connected with who are like on the older like end of the spectrum, who have like 2 or 3 kids, who started their business older, and they all wish that they started earlier. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I'm like here and I'm just like, oh, maybe I should wait. So it's just really interesting because like I feel like I'm so young to be in the business world, but then when I speak to people who are just joining the business world now, like the years haven't made them feel any more qualified. And I think that's the only thing that really stops me or really makes me doubt whether or not I should be in business this young, is that, am I experienced enough? Have I lived life enough to actually make an impact, to actually make money, to actually know what I'm doing? But it's interesting because people who have more lived experience because they've been on this earth for longer, that feeling doesn't go away. Do you know what I mean? Like that feeling doesn't get automatically cured at your 30th, 40th, 50th birthday. Yeah. It's just something that you got kind of have to work through yourself. So I think that's the reation why it hasn't actually stopped me, because I'm just very blessed with mentors. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I think that like I know that being able to look at people who have done it before, who can give me advice from them, because I actually did an Instagram post about this today, about how a jar can't read its own label, right? And it's this idea that your tribe or the people around you help you see your experiences that you, in a way that you wouldn't be able to see yourself. But what's really important is that you actually have the right kind of people around you reading your label, because if you have someone who doesn't believe in opportunities, thinks business is a scam, thinks that people should just stick to what they know, should never try anything new, they're going to have a very different opinion about what you should do compared to someone who's like, yes, like you're young, take risks now, I believe in you, like people can do anything they want to do. And it's the same experience you're going through, but depending on who's quote unquote reading your label, you'd have very different advice coming at you. And so I think I would be remiss to not like shout out all of the mentors that I have, whether they know that they're my mentors or not, who have shared a story or been open about their experiences that have helped me develop this strong mindset that you and I are have now, because without it, there's no way that I would be where I am today.
And that's why I'm so lucky to have you.
Oh my God, you make me cry.
And so lucky to have like a business coach and mentor and friend like you, because I don't honestly think that I would be where I am now, because it's so true. Like you are so hard on yourself and you tend to not see your own value. So you need to surround yourself with people who will, hold up a mirror and show you what you do have inside of you. So my question is, what do you think we can do, like for people who are maybe letting their age hold them back, whether they're too young or they're too old? Like, what do you reckon?
I could only really speak based on experience and what I've done. But the question that I ask myself is, well, when I feel that I'm too young anyway, I was like, do I feel like I would feel differently if I was older? Like if I waited a year, if I waited 365 days, if I waited to my next birthday, would I feel any more ready for this? Would I feel any more qualified for this? Because there are some things that I've asked myself that question and I'm like, you know what, a little bit of time would do me some good. But it wasn't a matter of I'm too young. It's a matter of I want to feel a bit more prepared. And that's a whole other conversation, because on one end, it's something like feeling more prepared is something you can control, and getting older is something you kind of wait around for to happen, right? And so I ask myself, if I feel too young, will I feel differently if I wait a year? And then the reverse, when I feel too old, because I was talking to my sister about going back to dance lessons, because it's something that I've been wanting to do forever.
Oh my God, me. I danced like my whole life until like I hit like high school and then I stopped.
Oh,
and now I feel like I'm too
yeah.
old.
That's literally what she thinks. And my sister is bloody 18. Like, why is she feeling this way? And so I said to her, I feel that way and I'm 25. I'm too old. And she's just like, and I think that for her, she realized, well, that means she's not too old if I feel like I still want to do it. So we want to do it together. But like, that's the, on the flip side, the question I ask myself is, if I waited another year, would I still want to do this? Do you know what I mean? Like, if I'm worried that I'm too old, all that time's going to do is force me into a choice that I might not want to make. Like, I might eventually get too old to dance because my legs don't work. Like, do I really want to wait until time chooses for me? Like, if I know that in a year from now, I'm still going to want to do this thing that I feel too old to do, then I'm not too old to do it because I'll be too old in a year.
I love that. I think we should make that into a quote. Don't let time choose for you.
Yes, that is literally one of my like mantras. Is something that I tell my boyfriend all the time, is that so many people, they are too afraid to make decisions, so they postpone the decision making so time chooses for them, to the point they're like, oh, the job opportunity's gone, they gave it to someone else. Or is it because you didn't put your hand up quick enough? Or like, oh, like the business isn't going to take off because the wave of, I don't know, like e-learning or like this certain cryptocurrency has taken off and there's no way that like I can do it anymore. But that's not really like, but is that actually what happened? Or is it that you were too afraid to make a decision at the right time, that now time has chosen that for you? So yeah, it's a really powerful thing to think about, because so many of the times we make it seem like we don't have any choice, but a lot of the time we've put ourselves in that position by not making a decision quicker, because it's just, then it's not our fault. You know what I mean?
And even like no decision or no action is a choice. Like you doing nothing is a choice as well.
I honestly feel like, as much as I'm so glad that we squeezed this into like our little half an hour like free time before you have to go and I have to go, I really feel like we need another episode where we talk about letting time choose for us. Yeah, it's going to happen. I feel like that's a very, very big one. Thank you so much for coming on. I actually miss talking to you so much. Like for our listeners, we're not making this up. Like, we literally have such busy schedules that being able to sit here for half an hour, look at each other in like a call while we're like recording an episode, this is such a privilege to be able to do this these days. So absolutely, I'm glad that we're
be doing it with such a good friend too. Like, I can't imagine.
I know. Girl, like I'm so grateful. I still go back to that moment on Instagram where you like followed me back and I was like, hey, it's been so long, and then look at us now. Like, it's honestly crazy.
We need to find that and like have like a 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, literally, because I was thinking
more already.
I think it has been more at this point, because I remember I was talking to Glenn and we were talking about, because like we drove past like our primary school, and I was literally saying to him, how crazy is it that like years and years ago Indy and I met here and now we have a podcast together. And he was literally like, yeah, when you guys are like rich and like have like 1 billion subscribers on your podcast, you guys should take a photo here. And I'm like, yes, we're gonna do that.
Yeah, they're gonna put up a plaque and be like, these two people went to this school.
It's happening. I'm like, we need to make that happen, because I think that like literally make 5-year-old me cry. Oh my gosh. Well, Indy, do you have any final words of wisdom about letting age stop you or not stop you for our listeners?
Yeah, don't let it stop you. Absolutely not. I would just say don't let anything stop you, but especially age. Like, age is literally just a number. It's all about the effort that you put into life. It's all about your goals and dreams. And it's all about being kind and helping people. If you're offering value to other people and you're helping people, it really doesn't matter what age you are. Doesn't matter.
I 100% agree. I love that. Well, guys, thanks again for tuning in to this short and sweet little collab episode. This is our commitment to you that we're going to be doing more of these. So if you listen to this and it's been 2 or 3 weeks since we've last posted a collab episode, literally call us out on Instagram. So we light a fire under us so we do this. All right. But thanks so much, guys. Love you, Indy. This is great.
Love you too. Bye. So that's a wrap. If you loved today's episode, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and let us know why you loved it.
And if you know someone who needs to hear this, then send it their way and share it to your stories, tagging us at Time Money Mastery.
Feel like you're wanting just a little more? Jump on over to our Facebook community. You can find the link in the show notes.
That's all from us today, fam. We'll see you soon.